dad's name is Paul Harper. Paul Harper. That's my dad's name.
Yeah, I guess. People get in. We'll start in a minute.
Yeah.
Legendary broadcast.
Sorry. Get the last name right.
Okay, everybody. Okay. Yeah, sign a few things first. Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, we can't sign it before.
Yeah, you have to wait till after the meeting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's right.
Can't sign it after the save a little while. We already know that trick.
We used to do it.
At least they were fun to try.
Okay, we'll call the meeting. Oh, ready? Okay, mic's on. Mic's on. And Mike is here. Okay.
Councilman Beal's here.
Here. Everyone, please rise to pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Okay, welcome everyone to tonight's meeting, both here physically and also on watching us on cable channels. We'd like to start with our agenda, for our students that are here, that are observing the process. We start off by fixing the agenda, and then we go into various sections and topics tonight. And we will be changing the order a little bit because we're going to have effectively a workshop session that on a number of projects that we've been pulling together in a list, and that we've had work done by our engineers, and others have been involved in this, and it will be the first time for a briefing the board. And then after the workshop presentation, there will be the public portion of the meeting, which is designed to allow anyone here to speak on an issue that's set on the agenda of the meeting. Then we will go through each of those resolutions to talk about that upon the closing of the public portion. Tonight, with respect to the agenda, and I'll explain some other things as we go by a little bit later. Tonight, as we talk about the agenda, Steve Frazier, the board members, had requested, and I think sent an email, and there's email here information where he wanted to discuss for special consideration new business concerning a new automatic and secured gate to the highway garage grounds. So Steve, I assume, will be here. I don't see him yet to discuss that item and a couple other items. So I'll add that to, or propose we add it to the special consideration new business. I'm not sure if we'll be ready for a resolution, but hear him on that if that's no problem. So with that being said, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move it.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Next item will be the discussion that was said where our engineering firm, CPL, and Bob Gray, Tim Moop, and Tom Harvey will be presenting on giving us an overview of the items that we have been talking about. It's part of the list. It's not the full list. These are the ones that seem to be more important. They're going to share with us what is really the nature of a number of projects that are related to facilities, parks, water, sewer, and also highway department. So at this point in time, I'll turn the floor over to Tim, please. Mr. Moot. And by the way, right now we're improvising with our audio-visual, and hopefully later on tonight we'll get approval of some new audio-visual equipment.
I don't know. Is this on? I don't know. Can you hear me?
That's not a mic for amplification. You use the one on the table. This one goes back up on the podium. Oh, is it?
Everything is working. You're not going to be able to.
But the people won't hear it here.
It goes on television. That's what we need right
So I'll speak as my loud voice, and if everybody can't hear me, just say something.
There
So,
you go.
good evening, everybody. I'm Tim Moot, principal with the firm CPL. basically we got together with Bob Gray and Tom Harvey, our team members. You may have heard CPL and Morris Associates recently merged. It's a benefit for everyone. Morris Associates, with their civil background, engineering complements our full service under one roof. We offer architectural, civil, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineering, structural engineers. We have planners, landscape architects. So right now under one roof, we can really build a city or build a town. And what we brought together in joining with Bob and Morris Associates was basically a compilation of the projects that were accumulating in some way, state, or form in terms of progress for the town. So we thought it beneficial to get together and basically present an overview of the summary of the projects. Now this isn't going to work. Which one? There we go. So the first thing is a general overview on how capital projects usually come about. There's several steps, and the big step is communicating with the public, communicating with the board, and having collective dialogue. There's a lot of information on these slides. I don't really want to stand here and read verbatim on every slide. I think that's why the board has packets with all this and a basic reference. But I can go through the milestones here just for the public's benefit. So a step-by-step process is basically we identify facilities, challenges, and opportunities that are some basic framework for a project. Once this comes together, some initial budgets and scope are put together. Once the scope is put together in a budget, we often have to find funding agencies, funding challenges, and how is this project going to be funded through public accounting. So we set priorities, which is what we'll look at tonight. There's about 38 some odd projects that we have in various states of progression. Some are prioritized and they're in a higher ranking priority based on their own parameters that we'll go over tonight. The town board then defines and agrees to the scope. Seekers involved, state environmental quality review. Once that is passed, and the state or the town would basically implement some bonding to fund the project. And from there, the project is designed, bid, and goes out for construction. Bids are awarded, and the project comes to fruition. You want to add anything on that, Bill? Bob?
Only that in the challenges portion that Tim talked about,
I think it's, CPL is very aware of budget and the constraints that we have working within a budget and the implications to the tax cap and things like that, and sequencing projects properly to minimize impact to budget. So we're very aware of that, and the board, and we'll work with the board on that.
So this next graphic is a list of the projects. There's 43 projects on the list, and in this table there's an estimated budget column. There's a column that would identify an appropriate possible grant funding option. Some of the projects you'll see on here are already awarded a grant. Then the next thing would be a status update to go to bid. And then I have just a general description on the comments, which is a brief overview for each project. I'm not going to sit here and go through the 43, but basically we've categorized, you can see on the highlighted graphic, there's projects relative under facilities to the Carnwath property. Under parks, we have Robinson Lane ADA bathroom upgrades, Airport Drive soccer fields, Rockingham drainage, again relative to soccer fields. Under the water category for water system improvements, we have Old Post Road water extension. Under sewer, Wildwood, Woodhill Green, wastewater treatment plant replacement, and Old Post Road sewer extension. And then under highway, the priority would be a new highway garage.
And this is a list that has been work in progress for a while. Many of these things we've discussed in various forums with board and board members. Some of them we have already filed grant applications that have been discussed with you before. And so this is something that goes back to Bob Johnson was assisting with as well. And so it's gone through a number of iterations to get it to the point where I think substantively there was some, it is ready for information to be, discussed with the board in a formal manner, you know, as compared to a lot of the informal stuff that we've been doing.
And then also under the budget estimate column, those numbers are somewhat fluid. It depends on when the estimate was put together. Some of these are a couple years old. Some of them, as you can see, are blank and they haven't even been vetted to that, you know, conceptual schematic design level where we could get a better idea of a formal scope and then put a cost to that. So we talked about the money part. Now it's the grant funding opportunities. That's one thing CPL has had success in doing grants. The next slide is just a kind of a laundry list of successful grants that CPL has obtained for municipal clients across New York State. These are mainly like municipal oriented. We have other graphics that kind of indicate more specifically CFA. There's some guidelines to grant funding. Most grants have an application submission deadline. Some grants have financial obligation requirements that the municipality doesn't get free money, but may get money that they also have to contribute a certain percentage for. The pre-grant planning phase is critical because you need a solid scope of work. It needs to be clear and concise and justified. It also helps to have community support. And there's other letters of like support, like say from sporting groups and things like that. If you're doing a park project, it helps to have the community behind these and recognized and documented. Oftentimes the state ranks projects. It's a scoring process, and the higher the score, the more higher probability you'll have of obtaining that grant funding. And that ranges on various grant programs. Again, community support, economic development, is there revitalization involved? Regional strategic planning, does it create jobs? And are any of these projects in a ready-to-go status? They call it, used to say, shovel-ready. That shows how serious the community is to really develop that improvement. So there's various, like in this grant market today, Climate Smart Communities, Office of Parks and Rec, which we've already talked to about the Carnwath property, so we're going to have a state grant rep come visit the site the early part of April. We'll see what transpires from there. The DEC Water Quality Improvement, Environmental Protection Funds, all these are very high contributing grant programs for water and sewer. Kind of going ahead of myself here. The next thing is lighting. There's a list here of all the basic properties that the town has that is paying toward electric. And so when you start to look at lighting and grants, one big thing right now is sport field lighting and converting the sport fields to LED. And there's basic programs out there. Musco is a big manufacturer of high mass lights for sport fields, and they have an internal program that's driven toward replacing the LEDs. And what I did here was just take their basic brochure and include it into this presentation, which I'm not going to go through page by page, but the idea is in a clear room you could see the difference from the old-fashioned sport lighting to today. A lot of it's light shed, and they want dark sky friendly lights, so this LED helps minimize light pollution and also offers a clarity. So when we created this list of projects, we did it by categories, and the next category is facilities. So we tried to look at all the facilities that are on the town roster that have a project associated with it. And with that one, we'll start with Carnwath, and I'll hand it off to Tom Harvey.
Thank you. Our office, as Morris Associates, and now as CPL, has been overseeing some work at Carnwath going back just about 2008 or so. We've done an overall survey of the overall property and been working on various repairs of the existing buildings there. And all this is moving toward a master plan for the park based on the town boards and the town's visions. We've done some repairs to the administration building. We put the roof on and a new porch on that building. They're currently getting water and electric hooked back up to it. And we're also looking at some roof repairs. We're looking at being able to get the sports museum back online with water, and basically just trying to get all those buildings to be usable and meet the needs of the town. And there's a lot to do there because a lot of those buildings are quite old. There's a concept for a community garden and a dog park, And as I said, many of the buildings just need roof repairs to keep the water out, to keep them from having problems. There's the Carnwath Chapel roof replacement. That's something that we've got plans going right now to hopefully get out to bid within the next few weeks. And then that's pretty much Carnwath. And then the next project that we've been involved in for quite some time is Emergency Services Building right next door to here. This was a project that was planned to be renovating the whole building, mainly to suit the state police and the ambulance squad. As part of the renovation, the original building construction was around 1994. There was a lot of upgrades necessary, some repairs necessary, and then the state police had a lot of ideas to reconfigure the space to better suit their needs and provide a safer office space for them. We also split out a space for the town's use as storage, for record storage, so that it was convenient to the town and secure. There were some changes in the footprint, and that project is nearly finished with all 4 contractors being done except for the electrical contractor. And that's mainly due to 1 change or 2 change orders that are coming up for tonight for a vote. One was unforeseen conditions on separating out the circuits per the different tenant spaces, and another one was just some additional outlets in the break room for the ambulance squad people. This project was originally bid out around $1.6 million for all 4 contracts. After some change orders, we're in around $1.9 million, and we've been tracking throughout this job that about 4.6% of that was triggered by state police requested changes, which resulted in almost $73,000 worth of changes. The town's storage area was about 5% of the overall, and that was about $80,000. In the M-Star area, it was almost $17,000 worth of changes to configure that space to suit their needs. And then out of the overall miscellaneous unforeseen, there was about $79,000 worth of changes, which was only about 5% of the project cost, which in our standards, we see 5 to 10% as a normal contingency unforeseen situation. So that building will be done, hopefully, as soon as this electrical contractor is done, and then it can go about its regular use.
It should be noted that the formula that we use as a town board is the bond payment for the repairs is being paid for utilizing the rent revenue from the tenants. So the rent revenue that we receive from the state police and from M-Star covers the overall cost of these repairs on this building. The additional value that we gained, which I have to give credit to the staff here as well as the engineering firm, is the additional suite that we gained for storage of documents. That was something that was an out-of-the-box, outside-the-box thought process, which is actually going to provide real value because we have documents in another location that need to be moved to a more secure facility to meet the standards. So I think it's a win-win. It sounds like a lot of money because it is, but understand that we have followed this closely through the process, and we have revenue coming from the tenants to cover this.
And I would note, Councilman Beal, that the income that is coming in for the rental, actually, we get a little bit of a surplus as compared to the bond payments, if you'll recall.
I wasn't going to say that because I wasn't sure if it was accurate.
It is.
But,
It is accurate.
So we're making a little money on this deal, which we can put towards annual repairs and things like that.
And while we're talking about it, what's the status update on an annual maintenance, contract? We had talked about that with respect to the major.
Yeah, we were working on a town-wide maintenance, and a lot of the other town systems are in flux of being replaced. So we'll go back to focus just on a maintenance contract for that building as a standalone beginning step, and we'll get an answer to that pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
So the next category that we looked at were parks, and there was a list of a couple things here, and the first one we looked at was Robinson Lane Park, again to add ADA bathrooms and some other upgrades there, Tom?
Yep. This is a project that we investigated the existing septic system at the park to see the feasibility of tying the new building into it. And based on the conditions, we think it's going to be best to build it its own septic system. We would put the concept is a prefab building that would serve male and female accessible restroom facilities. And then that would be having to be raised a little bit above ground because there's a floodplain issue there that building would have to be 2 feet above the floodplain. So we would build whatever ramps would be required to that building and then tie that into probably a new septic system now. And we've got some estimates going on that for everything to get all done with that. We were estimating about $126,000 construction costs and maybe about $164,000 with any of the soft costs added in.
Yeah, I'd like to add, for the board's benefit, this issue with respect to the septic system, they went out and thoroughly reviewed it, and there are some complications with respect to the existing system that basically makes it unusable, especially once we bring online, the new bathroom, requirements. It's just not feasible to do it, and probably wouldn't get Department of Health approval if we use the old system.
And so again, here's an example of, we have a project now, I think, where the scope is a little bit more defined. We need a new septic. We have the precast bathroom. And so the idea would be, how does this get funded? There's CDBG funds, there's the CFA grant funding, which this Robinson Lane could be part of some other park work as a global thing, but that's where we have to look at the scope, the timing expectations, and try to figure out what's the best way to get this project funded. So that's another reason why we wanted to sort of review all these things tonight. So.
Couple other things going on at Robinson Lane Park. I mean, in recent years, there was a playground installed there. And we're also looking at the potential for taking all the sports lights and switching them over to LEDs. That's another thing that there might be grant funding out there as we figure out the cost of doing that, try to move forward with where that funding can come from.
And one other thing was that we're also looking at the possibility of some sort of water storage tank or system that can be used, and I think our Little League representatives will be happy to hear to try to keep the clay wet, moist, and other, maintenance there. So I know, you've been looking into that. A simple system that's not going to involve, major repair, maintenance, or building a water tower, I will say.
That's right, and that would be another scope item that gets added so that it helps better define the project. And then within that, we could prioritize and say, what is the number 1, the number 2, the number 3 thing to do in terms of a priority. Airport Drive we looked at, it's very flat. It's there's not much elevation difference between the field, the wetlands, the stream. We walked the site and there are some minor improvements that could be made. There's have to coordinate with adjacent property owners, but we identified a back pitch culvert here and then as well as some stream channel work on the airport side of Airport Drive. So there's some minor things that could be done in the grand scheme of things to help improve the flow there. And then there was, we did identify this one area as wetlands so that while you could contrast with the playing surface, you would say, why can't we just fill that in and make it more fields, but it's wetlands, so that's going to preclude that.
And there are federal wetlands, which is more difficult.
Correct. Rockingham, same thing in a different light.
Just back to that so the board knows. They also had looked at the possibility of increasing the grade fill, and of course that's very prohibitive, it looks like. So I had asked them to go and look at an alternative, which is, they came up with a good possible alternative that would be able to drain off water. It wouldn't prevent flooding, but be able to drain off water after a heavy rain much more easily.
It would be a first step just to make sure that, you're going in the right. Once the drainage was improved, then we could look and see how well it performed after that and make another adjustment, which may be more fill. So Rockingham Park, again, it's very flat. We noted a saddle or a high point. It's not very high in contrast, but basically it would seem if we could do a topo survey and basically grade along this whole perimeter, drainage comes off of people's backyards, and it seems to bleed out into the fields, where if it could be more promoted and pronounced to get to the main culvert, that would help. It certainly won't hurt. The other question was about potentially filling in the pond area, which is again classified as federal wetlands, and it is about 1 acre, so it would be a pretty significant permitting, and I doubt, it would easily be approved to just say fill it in. But if that's what the town would like us to pursue, then, you know, we would do that, but our recommendation would be it's not really worth it, but worth considering. Castle Point Park is probably the simplest one. We were given a graphic to say here's what the soccer community would like to see. And basically it was a layout for 10 and under field, 12 and under, and it looks like 4, 8 and under youth soccer fields. So we basically drew to scale what each one of those field dimensions would be, and again could work with the town to lay these out so that permanent lines could be given, but that was a relatively simple kind of.
Drainage is okay out there from what you have.
I hadn't heard that drainage was a problem. I don't know. This was one field I did not visit.
It looks like there's enough slope around that where it should
Yeah,
not
in the middle there too, right? So. Yeah.
The only issue that I would see on that property is parking. If you're gonna be fully utilizing that many fields, we'll have to look at making sure there's adequate parking.
Yeah, well, we can always, you know, look at possibility, the land on the opposite side of the fields, that's all ours as well.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, some of the clearing right there maybe, you know, is possible since, you know, immediately to, across from the smaller, you know, the 8 and under, you know, fields, that's not wetlands right there, so there may be that possibility of clearing something.
That's a landfill on the left side, right?
Yeah.
What are the restrictions on a landfill? Are you allowed to do anything on top of it or no? No?
I guess maybe solar panels, huh?
Those vents, there's vent pipes there that give off gassing, and I don't think it'd be good to.
They're not allowed to remove those once they're in.
Candy canes?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what Ralph Holt calls them, candy canes.
Yeah,
Another 50 years, we'll talk about it again.
Might be a commodity.
Yeah, can we gather the methane and create energy?
Yes, that's.
We'll get to that next meeting.
Yep.
You want to do that one?
Spook Hill Park is another project that we've been involved in for a while. There's been a bunch of different ideas there. The latest idea is just some improvements on the parking lot, the creation of a 1/10 of a mile walking or running track, and potential installation of various ADA and other outdoor exercise equipment. There were some grants applied for some of this work, and from my understanding, they didn't come through.
No.
So
wrong.
now-
One will be coming through shortly. Can't say anything more.
Well, sounds like good news.
Yes, you know, the county executive has shared some good news with me.
And then in the meantime, what we're looking at doing is some of the improvements, like maybe the bathroom, the initial parking lot improvements, that might be done if the town can find budget otherwise to take care of those things. And there are always potential for other grants to be applied for.
Water. So our next category is water projects. Bob, you want to take it away?
Sure. We have a number of water and sewer projects that we've looked at. We've been talking to the board a number of times. The first is Old Post Road, from Adams, say, and Mercedes coming north and across Old Hopewell Road to the 3 properties that are owned. Well, there's 2 that are owned. Well, there's the 7-Eleven on the corner. There's the, I believe it's a Monroe Muffler now. And then there's a vacant property just north of that that's owned by Gene Lois. He's very interested in water for that. And then those can be accessed from a main on Old Hopewell Road. All those properties have frontage on Old Hopewell Road, so we can stay away from construction on Route 9. We are meeting with the property owners, I believe it's April 6th.
That's
Or maybe-
Saturday, right?
It's Saturday, it's the first Saturday in April. The property owners, several of them have been in Florida, and that's the first opportunity we have to meet with all of them. We had an earlier meeting back in February with a small group of owners, and they seem very interested in this extension. There's a apartment complex there called Stonegate. Mr. Shah owns that, and he's very interested in extending town water to that property. Just to the south of that is a vacant property that used to be owned by the owners of the Aroma Osteria restaurant. And that property has an approval for 14 new apartments. And that property owner is very interested. So we expect some good feedback from these property owners, and they would be the ones, anytime you have an extension like this, the property owners that are benefited, they're the ones that pay for it. So we need their interest to go forward with a project like this. So we'll know
Based
more.
on discussions with several of those that have attended the meeting, they are receptive to paying for that.
They are.
Councilwoman Bettina was there, and I think, Bill, you and Councilwoman Bettina have been invited to attend that meeting on the 6th, if you wish, because part of it's in your district.
Well, I mean, the commercial
Yeah.
extension is fine and dandy, but what about the impact to the residents in the Fowler House Road area? And I see there's an extension area there. We need to understand that the residents that are seeing impacts should have some level of benefit offered to them, especially when there's a water line going right by the end of their road.
Bill, this does not affect, we're not even talking about the Tractor Supply issue here.
Right, but if we're gonna consider doing a water extension on the east side of Route 9 to benefit the commercials, my position is we need to make an effort to look at the residentials. It
We
can't-
are.
Well, that is why,
That's why
you
we're
can
having-
see the purple on the lower left part of the map, potential Fowler House extension, that would include, we've shaded in the Tractor Supply property and properties on both sides of Fowler House
Right,
as
but
potential for an extension.
This meeting has to do with a commercial extension.
That meeting is the commercial part, right?
Correct. My point is, though, if we're gonna continue to extend, commercially, we need to be looking at benefiting the residents. We have to understand that the residents are also receiving impacts, and we need to make sure that they're part of the conversation, even if they're on the opposite side of the road.
Well, we can certainly do that. I think, as we talk about these projects, we're giving an overview tonight and just have a discussion with the board, and this back and forth, we encourage this. We don't want to just stand here and preach about these projects. We need this input back. But I think what's clear is we're not going to be able to, in today's vernacular, drill down into each one of these projects and look at their pluses and minuses and funding and various things. I think we're going to need a series of workshops to where we target certain of these projects and get really deep into them and understand the funding and other neighborhoods that could be affected. So I think this is a beginning, and that's good feedback, and we're aware of it. That's why we put it on the map as a
As I mentioned to
potential
you,
extension.
Bill, I did go out there and spend an hour, invited you, you weren't able to attend, and then also have communicated with our engineers with respect to exactly that point. So I met with them for, an hour and a half, and so we had a good discussion.
But you're right, that is an easily accessed, there's Main right there to the corner. And that would be, the water part of that is pretty simple. When we get to the sewer extension, because the people on Old Post Road are interested in sewer as well, the sewer part of Tractor Supply and Fowler House will involve a pump station, and we'll get to that when we get to that slide, all right? And then you'll see there's a rough budget for this project. That project alone is slightly above $1 million. Total estimated construction cost of $1,147,000. And we've put some figures in there. We assumed a 5% interest on a bond, which is a conservative number. I mean, I think we're regularly establishing bonds close to half that amount. And we come up with an annual payment and what the cost per parcel would be, which is all part of the approval for funding anything like this. But again, as we get further into it and we look at other properties, all those numbers are going to change. All right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Adams paid to bring the water to their property, correct?
Adams paid to bring the water main, right, and they brought the water and the sewer there and did a bore under Route 9 to get there. However, the properties in that route were not put in the district. Only Adams was. Adams and the Mercedes property were put in the district at that time.
Right, so before we entertain utilizing taxpayer dollars to pay to benefit commercials that are located on the east side of Route 9
Yep.
on a water main that was brought there and paid for by a commercial entity, we better have a conversation about how the residents are going to benefit.
Understood. Absolutely. The next project we want to talk about here is Woodhill Green. Woodhill Green is a condominium project. I believe it's condominium, not co-op, but it's a condominium project on Route 9, just south of Wappinger Lake on the east side of Route 9. Used to be called Scenic Apartments, if you've been around long enough to remember that. Anyhow, that property, the water supply there is really needs some improvement. And it's clear that the wells don't produce all that much water and the quality is not great. So rather than deal with improving quality on water where the quantity really isn't there, the idea here is to make a connection to the village water system and have the village provide water to Woodhill Green. So this is all part of a replacement of the sewer plant at Woodhill Green as well as the sewer plant at Wildwood, which is a plant that's owned by is a sewer district that the town has. And we'll get to those when I get to sewer line. But this is a standalone Woodhill Green water connected to the village. And on the next sheet,
And as to the water, you know, I think I was talking with, Mayor Matt Alexander, today, and they already have some funding, and we believe that there's another $1.6 million based on discussions with the funding authorities that will likely be available for this, but that still has to be applied for within, in the month of April.
yes, there's we talked about it before, there's a EFC grant which has been awarded for the sewer for both Woodhill Green as well as Wildwood. And as Supervisor Thurston has said, there's potentially other grants that could just about double that amount of grant money and make this.
For the sewer, looks like there's another 2.5 million
Yeah.
that we would add to the 2.48 million.
So these projects become pretty affordable, budget-wise, and as I said earlier, looking at the tax cap and things that we all have to be aware of.
We also have to look at the bottom line for the user, though, what it's going to cost them.
Yes.
And I think that that's just as important on what each one of these units is going to be responsible for paying based on the fact that they're becoming a tenant to the Village of Wappingers Falls.
Right. And they've been doing the analysis, and we'll be coming back to that at a later point when the
Exactly,
numbers
but
are
I think what Mr.
finalized.
Beal is referring to is the cost to town properties that are connected to village
Yes,
water.
Correct.
And
We've been
this
discussing that,
needs to
right,
be discussed.
Mr. Gray? We've been
Yes, we
discussing
have.
that.
We do have some properties that are connected to village water in the town that pay exorbitant water fees.
Right, yes.
Outback Steakhouse being one of them. We want to make sure we have these numbers ahead of time.
Yep.
Before it becomes a surprise.
Again, you can see from the budget, we have an estimated cost. That's basically it. We haven't gone into cost per property owner, cost of bonding, because we're not there. There's a lot of other factors involved with the cost of water and the grants and a lot of different things. But as we move ahead with a project like this, the cost per property owner, we need to look at, and actually it's required by law.
But we have, Mr. Gray, looked at buy-in fees, and we have had those discussions. So
Yes,
it's not
yes.
to say to the board that we haven't looked at that.
No, we
Already
have.
We have.
All right, our next project we want to talk about here is Myers Corners Road. Myers Corners Road, as you many know, is being reconstructed by Dutchess County. We think, and we've discussed this over a number of years, that when this happens, it seems smart to put utilities in the road when they've got the blacktop off the road, and it's just the cost of installation will be a lot less than it would be if we were dealing with a paved road and everything had to be tunneled or bored, because the county is not going to let us disturb pavement. So we have two users on Myers Corners Road. The county is rebuilding Myers Corners Road from 376 to All Angels Hill Road. So the section between DeGarmo and All Angels is about 1,000 feet. At the western end of that, there's the the New Hackensack Fire Department, which has rebuilt that. They're interested in town water. They have town water now, but it's through a main that should be replaced. The other major property is the mosque at the southeast corner of the intersection of All Angels and Myers. So they've approached the, excuse me?
The Garmo Hills Plaza.
Correct, yes. DeGarmo Hill Plaza is on the, going east from DeGarmo. What we're looking at right now is from the water main at DeGarmo, the existing water main, and extending it to the west. However, again, we're at the very beginning of this conversation. However, the county is beginning construction. If we're going to do this, the decision needs to be made and move ahead rather quickly. So I would suggest one of the early workshops that we have ought to be discussion of this and authorizing design work or whatever we need to be able to dovetail with the county. And Mike, it may very well involve going west on Myers as well.
Because it does look like they're ready to do some more work there from what I'm seeing.
Oh yeah, no, they're starting a 16-month construction period, and they're starting now. They've awarded the contracts. Keeping our eye on that, Old Hopewell Road, 2 years from now, the county is planning to rebuild that. Now, that's not on this list, but it is on our overall list. And the same principle applies. We ought to really evaluate, there's blanks in the water and sewer district on Old Hopewell Road. And it makes a lot of sense to look at putting utilities in while that road is being reconstructed. So we have a little more time to think about that and try to budget it. But this one on Myers is as we say in the office, the freight train is just starting to roll and it's going to start going faster. So if we're going to get on, we need to get on.
They're going from 376, Bob?
Excuse me?
They're starting at 376?
They are. Well, I'm not sure their construction sequencing where they're starting, but they're doing shoulder work on the whole route right now. Last year they were doing moving gas mains and things like that. You saw a lot of activity like that. Mike lives right in that neighborhood and he's seen the activity. So anyway,
So the blue on here indicates where there already is water, is that correct?
that is the water district, yes.
So it's kind of interesting that that entire area was left out of the water district.
Yeah, it is.
So you want to extend the water from DeGarmo's Hill Road west to
All Angels.
All Angels Hill Road?
Yes.
And you're just putting pipe in the ground, is that correct? Who's
Yeah,
paying for these connections?
And make a connection. We'd have to do a water district extension to serve those properties.
And then those properties would have to buy into the district?
They would have to pay the costs of that, yes.
And then also, they'd have to connect themselves to the main line, is that correct?
Yeah, when we put the main in, we'd put the service connections up to curb valves at the property lines.
Okay. Similar to Houstonville, correct?
Very, very much, exactly that way. It doesn't make any sense to me to put water main in if we're not putting the service connections in at the same time. It does cost extra money, but it avoids disturbing a road in the future for service connections. And in the county's case, they won't permit that disturbance. It'll be a tunnel. You'll have to tunnel under the pavement. There'll be no disturbance to the pavement tolerated by the county.
Did you run numbers on this job at all, or no?
Not really. The plan was to use the county's contract and the county to get a per foot price from their contractor.
Okay.
That doesn't seem to be working.
Okay.
The county, we have to take a meeting with the commissioner, but I believe that that would have to be funded by the town itself, and we would coordinate that contract with the county contract.
What does this 400,000 represent in this budget estimate?
Approximation of 1,000 feet of main at $400 a foot.
Mike Trimper did say that he had a conversation with them, Bob, and was indicating there may be, some further cooperation coming.
Yes. Again, Supervisor knows very well, we've talked about this many, many times.
Sure.
We need to have those meetings and make a decision of go or no go.
Okay.
And I think that covers our water projects. Moving on to sewer. The first one we have here is Wildwood and Woodhill Green wastewater treatment plant. Wildwood is a plant that's owned by the town. It's a town district. It services Wildwood Drive, the Wildwood Apartments, which is approximately 100 units. On the other side of New Hackensack Road is the area in there, and there are some apartments along the road there as well. Approximately 300 homes or properties are tied, 350 I believe are tied into that. The plant is about 50 years old, 50 to 60 years old. It's operating exactly the way it was designed. It's being very well maintained by our sewer operator, Camo Pollution Control. The DEC, though, is changing what we call the effluent limits that are permitted for that plant to discharge. That plant cannot meet those limits. The supervisor has corresponded with DEC requesting a meeting with them because, on the one hand, we have DEC enforcing regulations on effluent limits, and on the other hand, another part of the state limits our budget increases to 2% or a cost of living. So we're kind of caught in a catch-22 with this, and it requires some conversation with DEC and some planning. To help the situation, though, we did receive this $2.48 million grant towards this joint project. Woodhill Green has their own wastewater treatment plant that could use replacement. So the idea would be to replace both of these plants with pump stations and pump them to the tri-municipal regional plant. For those in the audience that don't know, there's a wastewater treatment plant in the town of Poughkeepsie that's called tri-municipal. It serves the town of Poughkeepsie, the village of Wappingers Falls, and the town of Wappinger. The town of Wappinger is more than half the flow to that plant, and these two properties could be connected to that via the village of Wappingers Falls. Basically, the Wildwood plant, which is the one on the bottom, if you look at the map there, that would be a force main, pump station and a force main going over to the Woodhill Green property. And if you know Woodhill Green, you see the driveway going up to it, so there'd be a gravity sewer coming down that driveway and cross Route 9 to Mizzier, to the existing sewer on Mizzier. The Woodhill Green plant, there'd be a pump station there that would pump up from their plant site to that gravity sewer. And again, we have this grant funding and potential to double that sewer grant funding. We have a total cost here of both projects of I believe it's 6.2 million. Let me turn the page. Yeah, 6.2 million. So of that, right now we have 2.48 million in grants. With the second grant, you can see the result of that. We're talking $1.2 million, which is, for this number of residences and this number of properties, seems pretty doable.
And the potential replacement cost for Wildwood sewer plant if we
Yeah.
do it.
The other part of this is both of these plants are tributary to Wappinger Creek. Wappinger Creek is tributary to Wappinger Lake, which, if you look at that starting next month, it's going to look more like a lawn than a lake. But so part of that is from the nutrients from not only these treatment plants, but further upstream, erosion, various things. So this is not only a benefit to treat sewage and for the property owners and to replace those plants and remove that maintenance, but also environmentally for the creek and the lake and downstream, that was a consideration for the grants being awarded. First grant, and as well as the next two that we're applying for. So that's a project that, we need to make a priority list in these series of workshops, what we're going to talk about and get into the details of this, and if we go ahead, the town board actions on bonding and various things like that. The existing grant that we have was awarded by EFC. EFC has communicated with the town a number of requirements that they want to see and information they want to see in order to keep that grant alive and move forward. So I think in the next meeting or two, we're going to be discussing those requirements and some town board actions that are going to need to be done to just keep that grant alive and help us with these next two grants as well. You'll have to excuse me, I've been fighting a cough for months. The next project I want to talk about is the Old Post Road sewer extension. We talked about the water. Same properties are very interested in sewer. The grade from Mercedes, roughly Mercedes and Adams, goes downhill going north. So the idea would be a gravity sewer starting somewhere around Aroma Osteria. Mercedes and Adams are already tied in from the main that crosses Route 9. So this would be a new sewer line running north from approximately the Aroma Osteria property and cross Route 9 at Hopewell Road, or cross Old Hopewell Road, I'm sorry, on the east side, run along Route 9 along the frontage for 7-Eleven, and cross over and meet the existing sewer on Sergeant Palmetier Road. So that would all be gravity sewer. There'd be no pump stations involved. We did look at an alternative of putting a pump station down around the intersection of Route 9 and Old Hopewell Road, as that's a low point, and then pump it back south to the existing gravity line in front of Adams. However, the cost of that, the actual cost of it, exceeded the cost of the gravity sewer, not counting the operation and maintenance of a electric pump station and the backup generator and the maintenance issues with that and the costs. So the gravity sewer would be the way to go there. We're also, as part of this, as Bill brought up before, any discussion of this, we need a discussion of sewer for Tractor Supply as well as the Fowler House properties. You know, Fowler House drops down off of Route 9, so there's a sewer main in Route 9 that that Adams flows into. So we'd need some kind of pump station down on Fowler House for the properties to flow into by gravity, and then pump that sewage back up Fowler House to the gravity main on the corner. So it's a rather expensive little piece of property to put sewer in, because we've got double pipes. We have a gravity sewer in the road, and then a pump station and a force main going back up. Now, Tractor Supply is looking at potentially joining the sewer district. I would like to think Tractor Supply needs a pump station to get their sewage up. So I think there ought to be a discussion with the town board and Tractor Supply about sharing that responsibility. So these are the kind of things we're thinking about, and to go forward with something like this. So again, that's going to be future meetings, a future workshop. Tractor Supply is in front of the town now, so I think discussions should happen sooner than later. They have a project schedule they want to meet, and hopefully we can get a meeting of the minds for that. So the costs on the Old Post Road sewer extension right now do not include Fowler House and do not include Tractor Supply. And you can see the cost of that are running about $2.36 million. Generally, you find a water project and a sewer project. If a water project costs $1, a sewer project costs $2. Okay, it's basically double the cost. So this follows, you can see that follows that rule of thumb pretty well. So that's it for our sewer projects, and again, I welcome future workshops to get deeper into these things. The other project we would like to talk about is the highway garage. We've all talked about the highway garage for a number of years. You can see we have a basic floor plan that we've worked with the highway department to create so that we could start looking at budget. That map on the wall, over all the way on the right-hand side, is the existing office. And the existing building, you can see it's shaded in. There's a big garage and a second garage there. I think this thing has been built in 3 different pieces. Then across the parking lot is the existing repair garage. It's a metal building where Tim has that laser on there. So the idea would be, you can see the shape of the building. It's rather odd because it fits the property. The basis for this was to make room for every truck to be inside. So trucks could be stored. So you can see on the bottom left end of the large garage, we have a drive-through, and you can see the trucks would be angled. That would be one way through there, and the trucks are angle parked. We initially looked at overhead doors for each and every truck and have trucks stacked. But these doors for these trucks are very expensive. They're large and expensive. So this is a much more efficient way to do it and less cost effective. Plus, you can see the property line to the left. That's the school, there's a subdivision back there. And the school, you can see the school right there. If we had overhead doors there, we wouldn't be able to get as close to there. We'd need maneuvering room for the trucks. So this results in a better utilization of the property. Now the cost for this, it's getting up there. So one of the options we're looking at is that whole back area, make it kind of a pavilion style, where there's a roof over it, there's lighting, and we would put power pods in there for plug-in block heaters, things like that, and reduce our expenses that way. Someday, if the town wanted to enclose it, they could, but in the beginning, it would be an open structure. It would get these vehicles out of the weather. It would still be cold in there, but they'd have block heaters, and the drivers wouldn't have to shovel snow off to get going in the morning. At the end of it, you see a truck wash. That's a feature that's in a modern highway garage is a necessary thing. That would be a system that could basically clean the trucks off and remove the salt, and you get a lot more lifetime out of these vehicles if they're kept clean that way. There is a new facility in Beacon. I say new, it's between 4 and 5 years old. And we went down to visit that, and then we've designed other highway garages as well. And we looked at some of the features that they have and what they like about it. And there are, believe it or not, even though it's new, there are some things they don't like about it. So we're trying to learn from their experience and incorporate that. So this is a project, a very large project, and it needs a lot more discussion.
And I would like to add that in some of the other discussion on shared services, the village is interested in exploring with us how to perhaps share some services, and also, the sheriff's department, is interested in perhaps having a substation located here, which again would be in the context of shared.
And that conversation is very important because it's going to help share the costs among and also make it more efficient. So you can see there's a blow up of the first floor plan. There's offices, plenty of room for the mechanics, storage of equipment and tires and things like that. Central, a station for collecting oil and distributing oil for maintenance work, as well as a second floor plan. The building all the way to the right, if you remember where the existing office is, that's going to be the whole building is going to be 2 stories, but that's to accommodate the truck height and the dump bodies going up. This area would have a first floor and a second floor because there would be no trucks stored underneath it. The other thing, if you look at the last sheet here, we're also looking at the town hall property. You can see very faintly on that, it doesn't come through that good on the PowerPoint, but we've mapped that area. We've had a hydrogeologist stake out the boundaries of the wetlands that exist back there. There's a fair amount of it. So what we've done, we've asked the biologist to stake it out. We've provided a sketch for it. we're meeting, the DEC regulates that wetlands. They're meeting us next week, and they're going to review the location of that line and whether it's appropriate or not, and also have some early discussions with us about developing that land. It makes sense to look at alternatives to the existing highway site for some, if not all of it. So that's got to be part of the conversation when we get further along with this, and we'll have a lot more information about it after we meet with DEC. The process is, we did this sketch, we had the biologist help us with the stakeouts. The DEC is going to visit with us next week, look at that stakeout, decide if they like it or not, move the stakes or whatever, and then we'll, by survey, locate those stakes and show the line, submit it to DEC, and then they sign off that that line is accurate, and that gives us a base map to work at. I'd like to point out that yellow line is the wetlands boundary. The DEC has a 100-foot adjacent area that they regulate the same way they regulate the wetland itself. So there are some limitations to the property, and until we talk to DEC and have some meetings with them, we really don't know to what extent we're going to be able to use it. But it's land we own. It stretches all the way to Old Hopewell Road. You see along the bottom, there's frontage on Old Hopewell Road, so we don't want to ignore that that's property we own. We want to make sure we look at all the possibilities.
Is there federal wetlands there as well, Bob?
Yes, yes, that boundary, everything from that yellow line going south is wetlands. As far as we know, again, DEC is going to look at that. Now, part of that, what we show there extends over on the nature preserve property, borders the town to the west, all the way to Myers Corners Road.
Middle Bush.
And that's all wetlands. And it's not our property, so we can't use it anyway. But, you know, we're going to have that conversation. And so that's all we have tonight. And we welcome your questions. We're here to get as much feedback from you as we can so we can move ahead with these things where you want to. And I think we really ought to think about further workshops where we can target certain projects and really flesh them out and move along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No.
I mean, just a couple comments. You know, thank you for putting together this presentation. You know, we have a significant number of projects here that are listed. And I'm a fan of capital planning. I think it's a good thing. I think it's something that we should continue to, you know, keep this list fluid and moving. The biggest challenge in town of Wappinger government is we have 2-year terms for everyone on the board. So 5-year capital planning and 10-year capital planning is very difficult when you're in a 2-year term. That being said, I think we need to take a look at what we can afford. You know, looking at the highway garage, obviously, that can get expensive very quickly. We need to understand that under the tax cap, we have very limited flexibility. That's right. And until debt service is exempted, which may never happen, we have to stay within the parameters of the debt service. So if that means we can only afford $2 million, if that means we can only afford $4 million, we need to know what that number is before we draw a big building. You know, that said, though, we do have other projects here that might be considered low fruit that we can start focusing on. I'm a big fan of trying to correct this sewer problem in an affordable way, and it's not cheap. You know, we've had sewer plants for 40 and 50 years that when it rains, you know, on a rainy day, terrible. It's the dirty little secret of sewers. You know, when I first got elected, I asked Mike Tremper what those suds were going down the creek every time it rained, and come to find out, it's not just our sewer plants, it's all the way up to Pleasant Valley. So I think we're being proactive from a town perspective and a village perspective to try to correct these things, but they're never easy solutions. But I do appreciate you folks coming and laying it out like this, and I thank the supervisor for putting this on the agenda and hopefully we can do this a little more than, quarterly if feasible.
No, I absolutely intend to now. We're moving along. Back to your point about the sewers and when it rains.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about, but we do have a major program looking at I&I, which is the problem that you mentioned. And in fact, even today, at the, before today, Mike Tremper and group, they sent video cameras through the system at Pavilion and found some number of areas of leakage and so forth, and are in fact working on, along with Bob and CPL, on how to assist them on doing that. Same thing up at Woodhill. So those are other programs we're looking at. But why, I think Tim had emphasized the grant funding is realizing what you said is very true. So we are looking aggressively at other grant funding programs, including for the older plants. You will hear probably in the next month or so about our other old sewer plant, and the needs, because the DEC is actually knocking on both doors. So there is a lot, and I do intend to have really monthly meetings on these issues as we move ahead. And also, our town attorney is looking at ways with respect to whether it's the extension of the existing sewer and water districts, or maybe some other approach that helps us to address it on a very realistic and more cost-effective basis. So those are all elements there. But you're right, and there is some other low-hanging fruit that we haven't talked today, because we wanted to get before the board the big projects, and that's the purpose here. But you'll be coming back to others.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
Really,
gentlemen.
thank
We
you for
appreciate
doing this
it,
and
yeah.
coming before us.
Okay, so that concludes our, workshop tonight, and now we will move into a public portion of the meeting relating to any of the board resolutions, that we have. So this is the time, we'll have a motion and second and vote, but where we allow the public to discuss any of the topics that are on the agenda, and we'll talk about that after we get a motion to open the meeting.
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. So now, if there's anyone that would have a comment about any of the agenda items that are up for, resolution, tonight, then please come up to the podium, identify your name, that you're a resident in the town. If you don't want to identify the specific address, then just identify preferably the ward or the general area. So, any comments on the resolution? All of them.
Boy, all of us, right? It's a low grade and it lasts for 6 or 8 weeks. Good evening. I enjoyed that. That was remarkable. And there's a lot of hope in that. And
Identify yourself,
I beg your
please.
pardon. My name is Hayden Wayne. I reside on Greeley Hill Road. It's an amazing community. I've been here 17 years. I love it here. There's so much promise, it's remarkable. But a particular thing I just caught my eye on, autism. I'm one of those kind of monastic priests. I read about 7,000 or 8,000 pages a year. It's kind of insane to the point I can't see anymore. What I've discovered about autism is excellent. Technology. What I've discovered about autism is quite frightening. In 1975, 1 in 5,000 was autistic. Today, 1 in 36. And the projection is by 2035, it'll be 1 in 3. It's clearly about food. Between the herbicides and the pesticides, we are killing 3 essential amino acids that we need for our well-being. So what I would suggest, without getting into a long-winded summary of what I have read, I think it would be brilliant for the community to recognize what is possible from the standpoint of non-GMO, organic, and just general education. Sugar is an absolute poison. There are specific PhD physicians out of University of California, San Francisco, who have done, they're accredited all the way down the arm and tied in with researchers that are looking specifically to make fructose recognized as a toxin. Just to give you an example of how insidious fructose is, say your grandchild wants to have some apple juice, and it's got fructose in it. Well, it's interesting, when we drink alcohol, we metabolize alcohol, that's why we get tipsy. Well, the same damage done to the body that alcohol does as a carcinogen, this does without that tipsiness. So the next time your grandchild asks for some apple juice, give them a can of beer. Same difference. Now, as flip as that sounds...
That doesn't apply to your son, I'm sure. Aaron will say no, Bill.
As flip as this sounds, I implore all of us to seriously figure out putting something together to examine the food. Healthcare is spinning out of control, and healthcare is at the end of your fork. And putting out simple mailers of what could aid and abet better living standards, especially for a young child who's formulating the foundation of their biogenome. It's all in the gut. So enough on that, I'll sit down. But that should really be done, because if we become a poster child in demonstrating what can be done on a community level to aid and abet the health of our own community and beam it out, I think it's going to win some good response.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you. Any other comments on any of the resolutions that we have?
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. Okay, now we'll move into the resolution portion. This is where we'll discuss the resolutions that are on the agenda. You know, the first resolution is resolution number 2019-59. This is a resolution establishing a mission statement for the Department of Parks, Facilities, and Programs. Jessica, is Jessica here? Oh, there she is. Jessica, as a result of the last board meeting, general discussion talking about this, Jessica went and revised the, statement, the vision statement, some of the mission and statement of purpose, which is on the dais in front of you. But I think I had looked over it, and I thought that the edits were actually very good proposals that could be tweaked, but I thought that Jessica did a good job with trying to address some of the points that was raised last time.
I did put some thought into a vision statement, which I want to read to you and get your thoughts on. So the vision statement is really basically from 30,000 feet where we see ourselves going. Our vision is to offer recreational programs and services for all ages designed to connect our community, enhance the quality of life and health of our residents, and strengthen our environment and local economy. That's just my thoughts on the vision statement.
Yeah, it's somewhat similar, but to what Jessica had done, but I like the compactness of that.
I just wanted to make one statement there.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I'd be willing to vote on this tonight if my colleagues are. The only thing that I would offer to amend is add the vision statement that I'm proposing and keep the mission and statement of purpose as proposed on the document, if that's something we want to agree on.
I have no problem, Councilman Beal, with your proposed vision statement. I think it addresses the same points.
Look at it if you want. The only other question I had was relative to the title of the department.
Right.
We have Department of Parks.
Originally, it said Department of Parks, Facilities, and Programs, concerned that there would be confusion with Mr. Frazier's Building and Grounds, so that's why I had put in parentheses something to consider community spaces or some other word.
On the top of mine, I put Department of Parks and Recreation.
Right.
Or Department of Parks and Recreation Programs, whatever you think, if that's something you want to consider.
The reason why this title, at least I put it in here, doesn't mean we can't go back to the bureaucracy and change it, is that this was originally with the facilities, the job description that the civil service has, and the title of the director position that we had identified. That's the reason for it. But there's no reason, I guess, why we couldn't change the title of the department and still have them named that way. Because I was concerned too about the confusion that the facilities issue caused.
So if there's any additional thoughts, feel free to speak out. If not,
I like your vision statement.
I do too.
Yeah, I would go with Councilman Beal's vision statement. over
All
what
right,
the previous
so I'll
one
move
did.
that we amend the document to include the vision statement. Pause. What do we want to do with the title of the department? Because it's two different titles on this document.
Correct, correct. So, what I prefer is actually the simplified version. We need to double check with, civil service with respect to the inconsistency with the job title of the
I don't think as far as the department title, whatever you call the department is within the purview of the town. The one thing I think that should be clear is if you're, for budget purposes, recreation facilities and non-recreation facilities are treated differently. So if there's some idea to go beyond recreation facilities, I think you need to make that clear in the title. If you're going to limit it to parks and recreation facilities, then I think because facilities is kind of generic, it's not
Correct,
clear.
and that was my concern. I think the intention is to limit it to park facilities, the use of those park facilities, not the maintenance and repair, which is Mr. Frazier's responsibility.
But I mean, his responsibility is broader than just parks.
Yes,
Right.
it is. Yeah.
Well,
All
we kind
towns.
of put parentheses here, say usage, so we know it's for usage.
Well, I think, Mr. Haran, if what Councilman Beal proposes, going back to the simplified Department of Parks and Recreation, doesn't run afoul of the position title, then I would prefer to have the simplified.
Okay. All right, so let me restate the motion then. I'll move that we adopt this document with the following changes. The vision statement that I proposed and the name of the department to be the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
That's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions, the motion passed.
And
And
if you-
obviously with the caveat and the distinction that this does not encompass necessarily the responsibilities of Mr. Frazier.
No, it doesn't. It delineates his, in fact, I think it makes it more clear because we
Does
took the
make
word
it more-
facility out.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear for the record.
If Supervisor, if you could just have the Recreation Director restructure this document to
Will do.
reflect that and then redistribute it
Okay.
to us.
Will
That'd
do.
be good.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Sure. Thank you very much. Next item is Resolution 2019-81. This is a resolution appointing a full-time maintenance mechanic in Buildings and Grounds Department. Mr. Frazier, would you like to come up, address the board with respect to this proposal?
Sure. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we had an unexpected vacancy in this position, and this would be the replacement for that person that resigned. I think it's Sal Masella is the name on that.
And this is the person that you recommend for the position?
Correct. He was on, I had a list of 4 that I was very interested in, and he was in that list and still available.
And this is the hourly rate, $24.73. That's within the
That
budget
was
that
what
was,
was
I think,
budgeted
adjusted.
for it, yeah.
or-
It's per the collective bargaining agreement.
Correct, as well, that's
I'll
correct.
move to authorize the hire.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, Steve, did you, that other budget correction that we made previously, remember we made a budget correction
Right.
to facilitate the hiring of someone? Was that this position or a different position?
No, that was the, excuse me, the year-round labor
Was
position.
that was taken care of, or is it?
I believe that resolution took care of that.
Right, but is it been filled, that position?
It was never vacant.
Oh, so
Yeah,
it just was unfunded?
Yes.
Right.
Oh, okay, so the person was hired but wasn't funded?
Well, he was already here,
He was
yeah.
already here.
I'm glad we fixed it.
Yeah, yeah, there was an oversight during the budget process.
Nice to get a paycheck when you work, right? Thank you.
Okay, the next resolution is Resolution Number 2019-83. This is our proclamation that April is Autism Awareness Month.
Yes, well, we've already spoken about the importance of publicizing this, so I certainly would do that.
Okay, there's a motion, there's a second.
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 Just on the question, did we skip a resolution, or?
Did I skip one?
Well, the
Oh, I'm sorry, the change orders, but.
We'll go
yeah,
back to that then, okay.
Yeah, no, I think we're, yeah, we're okay. Yeah, 2019.
Maloney
Oh, I'm
Heights,
seeing.
we don't have a
Yeah,
bond.
Yeah, we had the mechanics, and then we had a resolution Yeah, the surety bond, we don't have that.
Right, so
Right,
it
we don't
stays
have
on-
it yet, so
stays
that's
on
why I
the
skipped it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I
So
make
that
that
will be
motion.
what's still tabled, I guess,
8-2?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, 8-2, yeah, we haven't received the bond yet.
Yep, and we're on to A3, I made the
Yeah,
motion.
so 8-3 is the autism.
And then, okay, so then on the question, I mean, obviously, we understand as a town how important it is to understand the impacts of autism. We have put out autism signs on town roads for those that have autistic children. That's something that is available in this town. For folks that have an autistic child or an autistic relative in their home, they can contact the town board, and we have the mechanism to erect a sign in that area. So certainly I will support this.
We can also put something on the website.
Sure.
Where people can find information, per your recommendations too, that this information is available to anybody that wants to see it, you know, parents, teachers, whatever.
And I think further to Mr. Wayne's comments, you know, we are at just in a very early stage where Sparrow's Nest is interested in perhaps having a large plot of, you know, renting from us land out at Carnwath that could be used for organic, non-GMO type of food, you know, stuffs, and so that may be some other expanded use along those lines once we see what that might look like.
But the education of the community is
Right.
of the utmost, beginning with the parents.
It's really readily available,
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
Right, so
I think as
that
we,
is
you know,
something that
we're
we
in
can
the
put out there.
process of work.
Is there a way amongst yourself we could substantively figure out some kind of committee to like figure out how to do this most efficiently to get it out to the community?
We can talk amongst
We can talk
ourselves
about that and explore that,
And
yeah.
we'll figure out the best
And
way to
and we're going to be
communicate it.
having a new interactive website, which hopefully in the next board meeting or thereafter, we'll have that shown to the board of what the alpha, you know, version looks like. But that's coming along quite nicely, and so that will have that possibility that we can have some of that, you know, outreach tied
Yeah,
into
the
it.
websites, so that
Okay,
would.
so we have a motion and second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The next item is Resolution 2019-85. This is a resolution authorizing change order numbers 5 and 6 for the Emergency Services Building renovation project. This is electrical construction contract number 17-003, small e, and this was referenced by Mr. Gray and Mr. Moot earlier. Mr. Gray, would you like to address that, or do you want Tom, you know, to address it?
These are two separate change orders. One is being triggered by what we found as shared neutrals in the wiring in the emergency service building. This was something that was inside conduits and inside junction boxes that we couldn't have known going into it, and the contractor couldn't have found until he got into it. And by the nature of separating out the electrical wiring in the building to separate out by different tenants, so it can be separate billing to the different tenants, it's necessary to run new conduits and new wiring to serve the separate tenant areas. It's somewhat involved because of the conduits and separate out the circuits, and that also involves bringing some of the electrical panels up to current standards by putting ties on them that leave the circuits that weren't separated on tied switches, if you will, to keep them safe so when they're turned off properly, and people know that. So that's one of the change orders, and it's one of the last things to complete with the electrical contract on the project. The other one is about $1,872, which was additional outlets in the M-Star break room, so that they had safe ways to plug into their electrical needs.
And that was something that, under the code on a commercial building, I didn't realize this, there was not a requirement for an outlet X number of feet as there is in other structures. So it was built to code, but when they moved in, they have to plug their portable radio chargers in. Everyone has a cell phone charger. Next thing you know, there's extension cords going all over the place, power strips everywhere. So it was best and safer for them to put additional outlets in. It's only $1,800. I know we don't like change orders, but I believe that these are two safety-related issues. And I also believe that having a separate meter for each suite is very important, so.
Now, is this going to be the last change orders that we're going to be experiencing, or can we anticipate additional ones after this?
This is the last one. This is all the other work is basically done except for this. And we even went to another contractor to see if there was another simpler way to do it. We went to different people in our offices to see if there was any other alternative to this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard this before, that's the only reason why I'm asking the question. I'd like to see this in the rearview mirror, I'm sure we all would, that's all I'm saying.
Yes, this is all that's left to be done with that building.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Councilman Cosman, I would like to say that there is one more potential item, not to the building, but Councilman Beal and I have discussed, we're working on a plan that will be presented to the board. The idea is that we want to do a rededication of the building and are looking at some potential landscaping outside of the building and extended to the town hall. So that's something will come back, not related at all to the construction, but we are considering something, would make it look a little nicer.
We put so much money into the inside of this building, and it looks beautiful, by the way. The outside obviously could probably use a power wash. It could probably use new gravel in those areas where there's supposed to be gravel. You put all this money into the building, right? You want to beautify the outside as well, so we'll bring that up at the next
But
meeting.
we'll discuss the next.
We'll discuss it at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay. The next resolution is Resolution 2019-86. This is a resolution authorizing a refund of escrow. The escrow to be refunded is $668.11. There was an extension of the United Wappinger Sewer, District previously to serve the Drago property on All Angels, and so we've reviewed it and everything's appropriate.
Yeah, we've been working with them for a number of years. I'm glad to see this is finally in the rearview mirror, and I certainly will happily make that motion to grant the escrow
Second.
refund.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The next resolution is Resolution 2019-87. This is a resolution authorizing the annual contract, basically for portable toilets. Mr. Frazier, would you like to discuss this?
As in years past, we put portable toilets in certain parks for different uses with the teams that are playing. We put out a request for a schedule and requirements and came back. You have the results there in front of you. Herring was the low quote on that, and I recommend that we move with them. We've had very good service from them in the past.
Does this include the restroom for Inspiration Field?
I will get that. That was added after.
Okay.
But I will make sure that gets in place. In fact, I'm going to make a phone call tomorrow once it's approved. Some of the sports teams are playing earlier than we anticipated.
Yeah, April
So I wanna
6th, I
get
believe,
things
is
in
opening
place.
day, and we have Little League
Yeah.
here, so let's see if we can get that in
Right.
place
Oh,
by
yeah,
then.
I'm going to get this going tomorrow.
Okay,
And
got it.
and they're very good about getting them out there immediately.
Okay, thank you. I'll make that motion then.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? None. The motion passes. The next resolution is Resolution 2019-88. This is a resolution amending the 2019 budget to reflect the PEG grant funding and authorizing purchase of video equipment. This is a continuation of our discussion the last week. Mr. Haran has, made some additions, so I'll change to the resolution. Also, Mr. Minor's here if we need him to make comment, but I've reviewed it, with him thoroughly. I think a number of us have. And, Mr. Haran, do you want to talk about the funding mechanism with respect to the PEG grants?
Sure. So, as part of the Cablevision franchise agreement, there's $50,000 in PEG grant funding, $40,000 which is due, I believe it's within 60 days of the approval of the contract by the Public Service Commission, and then there's another additional $10,000 which is on the 5th anniversary date of the agreement. The agreement has been submitted to the Public Service Commission. It typically takes about 2 months to get approval of the cable franchise back from the Public Service Commission. So by year end, we should have the $40,000 on hand regarding the PEG grant funding. I had some discussions with Frederick as to how to book it. I don't want to belabor some of the issues because it's a restricted funding source, but for purposes of it's tied to the franchise agreement, so we just put it in the funding line, which is the same funding line as the franchise fee. And then with respect to the items that have been spec'd out, the cost is approximately $54,000, which includes certain equipment regarding the broadcast of the meetings, as well as monitors for this room, and monitors for the control room. And also there's approximately $5,900 for a PA system and meeting room audio, which is all budgeted in this as well. So in essence, what has happened here is there's a $40,000 increase on the revenue side, a transfer of $14,000 fund balance to provide the income with respect to the $54,000 expenditure.
So, question, the equipment that you're speccing out, Mike, is compatible with the house AV system that Steve specced out with Hudson Audio Visual?
Correct. That quote is for this room audio with speakers, PA systems, and will complement what I do in terms of additional wireless microphones. They're also going to put a jack in here for if the seniors want to put music on for their yoga classes or whatever. They could just plug their iPhone or whatever into the wall, and it'll project throughout the room. So, and that includes installation. They'll do that as part of the bid.
Good. That's good.
So, and I will do the video portion in terms of installation to save the town money on that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so, one other question regarding, in looking at this, while the total of the equipment exceeds the $20,000 competitive bidding threshold, none of these items really necessarily have to be purchased as a group. And in looking at it, no individual item is greater than $20,000. So it would be possible to utilize Amazon, Best
Right.
Buy, any conventional. I mean, certainly if you can get it cheaper off of state bid, that would be appropriate. But if there's a conventional mechanism for buying it, there isn't a requirement here to purchase it off of state bid. Also, I know, and I don't know if Mike looked at it, because of the nature of some of the video equipment, we might be able to purchase it off of GSA, federal GSA contracts.
All of the vendors listed in here are state contract bids, which I've dealt with in the past with other municipalities.
Right.
So
I'm
this
just
is-
saying, if you can
No, I
find it
understand.
cheaper someplace
No,
else,
right.
you're not.
We can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're not limited. And as we discussed earlier, we're going to be able to help our citizens that have hearing impairment to look at our meetings on YouTube.
Right, we currently stream the meetings on a Minute Track platform that does not support
So
closed
that's-
captioning, so YouTube will embed closed captionings for
Right.
hearing impaired, so, and that's a free service.
And that's going to be beneficial to so many residents too.
Right.
So we're going to implement that, and starting the day after the meetings, it will be available on YouTube.
Right.
So to help the residents.
And we also
on all our
stream
meetings.
the planning board and zoning boards
Exactly,
on there
planning
as
board,
well,
zoning
so.
board, zoning board of appeals, right.
Yeah.
So, thank
So
you.
we'll look in other ways.
So that's going to be great.
And thank you for passing that autism.
You're welcome.
I don't think we passed it yet, but.
No, he said autism.
Autism.
All the autism.
I have
Yeah.
a-
Actually, Mike has an autistic.
Oh,
I have an
yes,
autistic
absolutely.
daughter, so I appreciate you.
You're
bringing
welcome,
awareness
thank you.
to that.
Anything we can do to help you in that regard,
Yes.
please let us
You
know.
know that.
Thank you very
Yes.
much.
So back to this proposal. This is an all-inclusive proposal, which is consistent with the memo that you emailed, this memo also,
Yes,
right? So everything
correct.
that's on this list is here.
Excuse me, sorry.
The gooseneck mics will be in place on here, right? On the dais?
Yes, And they don't have on-off switches, which is good. If they have cough buttons, so you just hold
They
it
have cough
down
buttons, so
if
they're
you need
new.
to cough.
Okay, that's good. Are we still running, is that a PZM mic down here? or
It's a
what-
PZM, but we'll have additional goosenecks here.
We will, okay.
As well as wireless equipment
Okay.
for presentations and things
All
of
right,
that nature.
and then the wireless handheld, which is spec'd out here, there's a wireless lab also,
A
correct?
couple of wireless
So
labs.
you'll be, your staff would secure those items then?
And we're also going to be installing 75-inch monitors here, one
Okay.
facing the board and two facing the audience. So when
Okay.
you have presentations like this, they'll be on the big screens.
Perfect.
Right.
And we'll have a feed to the back as well.
Perfect. So you can,
We can
okay,
cut
so you
it
can
in.
take the contents of the screen and put it right on
Right.
television?
And with the high-definition cameras, we'll be able to zoom in on the monitor to get tighter.
Okay.
We tried tonight to zoom in, and it looked hard.
Yeah, it's not
These are
there.
12-year-old cameras,
Right,
it's just
yeah,
not
no.
feasible, so.
And then just to reiterate, obviously, the channel that we're on Cablevision and on Verizon is standard definition, but the YouTube feed would be high
That'll
definition.
be high
Yes.
definition.
All right, great. Well, I think that you've done your homework. I'm going to support this.
I'll make that motion or second it.
I'll move it and then Mike can second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed.
And look forward to working with
Thank
you.
you, you as well.
Just briefly related is that, Mike is putting together a schedule of different tapings and programs, which also will include each of the board members to have opportunity to also tape. So hopefully the next meeting or so is, taken off, I guess, a week or so, but we'll have a schedule, of that for additional
And we're
input.
also going to have a schedule for 22, so
Yeah.
it shows when things are on.
The
and
channel
we'll-
22.
We'll notify
Yeah,
them.
so-
Do we control that channel? Which one is the one that we're on right now? Is it
22
22,
on
okay.
Cablevision. I think it's 35 on Fox.
35 on Verizon? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, we control that content, right? Mr. Clerk?
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. We'll be able to get it.
Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks again for also taping the events like the St. Patty's Day Parade. I have received, I'm sure other councilmen and women have,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of compliments
Oh, yeah.
and people claiming, we got our 10 minutes of
Yeah.
news and so forth. So thank you for
I think
doing
Bob
that.
Turn it
Gray got
over in
his
24
too.
hours. I mean,
I think Bob Gray got his.
Yes,
Bob definitely showed his skill.
Thank you.
Legendary. We'll leave it at that.
thank you. The next resolution is Resolution 2019-89. This is a resolution appointing a full-time account clerk, typist in the Controller's Department. I don't see Frederick here, but I'm very familiar with it. This is a position that we created in the 2019, budget for him to try to deal with more of the issues, including the bookkeeping, the escrow and so forth. We've thoroughly looked at, Frederick's been actively involved in reviewing civil service and also our collective bargaining unit agreement. So the candidate that's being proposed after a number of interviews he had has, actually I interviewed her as well, has excellent background. Actually, what I found most interesting in one of her current assignments is she's working with one of our, I won't go into the details, government agencies, so it's included some good investigative and forensic skill set, that would help, us do more thoroughly internal auditing. And and this is at, $22 an hour. So we've cleared it with the civil service.
I'll move.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passes. The next item, resolution, in fact, our last resolution for this evening, as far as on the formal agenda, is Resolution 2019-90. This is approval of the correspondence law.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. So the next item will be a couple of items concerning, special consideration, new business. There is, I think, actually 3 items. One that I mentioned earlier that Steve Frazier has with respect to the security gate for the highway garage. I'd like to just change the order briefly, since we have our gentleman from the Little League
Yes,
here.
I was gonna suggest that
Have them
also.
come up, and what this is
Can we just move for a 2-minute recess?
Sure.
Is that okay? A 2-minute
Yeah.
recess, just so we can let the students loose?
Yeah. Okay, very good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Yeah.